Welcome again to this next episode of the Chi Life podcast. Today we have a special guest with us, Scott Townsend. Scott Townsend, his thing is breathwork. I actually went to a workshop that Scott was holding, I guess it was a couple of weekends ago.
Two.
2 weekends ago,
Mm.
yep. And I thought I'd go along and check out what he's doing. One of the things that impressed me about what Scott is doing is that he was presenting a whole range of different breathwork techniques. Really, from what I know of Scott and what I've discovered about you, he's gone through and he's studied a lot of the breathwork techniques that are most prominent today. So he's sort of covered his bases, and I think that's a really valuable, really important thing, because there's so many people out there working with breathwork that they're kind of the one technique wonders, I guess you could say, and they're just like, oh, just this one thing.
Mm.
And I think there can be value in that.
Mm-hmm.
I think there definitely can be value in that. But there's actually so much to the breath, and it affects us in so many different ways.
Mm.
And in different situations, different techniques are more suitable.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought I really like the approach that Scott's taking, sort of exploring all these different areas of the breath. So Scott's clearly taken the time to really dig deep and research lots of different areas of the breath. So I think we're going to have a really interesting conversation about that today. So, Scott, perhaps maybe we could begin if you could tell us, I guess, a little more about yourself than just that you're into breath work, but maybe particularly focusing on how you got into breath work. What was your motivation to get into breath work in the first place?
Yeah, thanks, John. Do you mind if we interrupt first and just do a few minutes of breathing?
Sure, I think that's a great way to start us off.
Since we're going to be talking about it for so
Yeah,
long.
okay. I'm hoping people are already breathing right now.
Absolutely.
But we might do it a bit more intentionally.
Yeah, just bring awareness to it. Like, we're not going to huff and puff,
Yeah,
but just bring attention to the breath, and then we'll roll from there.
Yeah, let's do that. You can take us through it.
So if you're driving, you can do this with the eyes open. Otherwise, I invite you to close the eyes down. Relax your face. Let go with a bit of a sigh. And then just let go of control of the breath. Don't do anything to it or make anything happen with it. Just allow it. Let the breath breathe you. And just let the mind, the feelings, the thoughts do whatever they want. Just practice doing nothing just for a minute. And really just bringing awareness to your body, getting out of your mind and into your body and noticing, what's here for you today. Just how do you feel? Where are you at? Just acknowledge that. Now bringing attention to your breath without changing it, just feel into it. The breath is something that you can feel, so what does it feel like to breathe? What does it actually feel like? Where can you feel the breath going? What does it touch? What moves as you breathe? Feel the body open and expand on the inhale. And on the exhale, feel the body soften. Now relax your face again. Forehead, drop the jaw, soften around the shoulders. And just feel the breath flowing in and out of the body. Now, bringing attention to the chest. Bringing your attention to your heart. And just imagine that the breath is flowing in and out of the chest, in and out of the heart area. breathing a little bit slower, a little bit deeper than usual. Just finding a rhythm that's easy and comfortable. Breathing in and out of the chest, in and out of the heart. Smooth, circular, soft and connected rhythm. Making the breath gentle. Now, bringing about something positive. Feeling it, breathing it. People, places, puppies, whatever gets you spinning. Care, love, compassion, service, gratitude. Just breathe some positive emotion for a bit. Breathe that into the chest. Breathe that into the heart. And then breathe that feeling, breathe that love, that emotion, whatever it is, out to the people and the world around you. And then in your own time, coming back. Softly open eyes, wiggle fingers and toes. Nice. Hey, thanks for the intro. And, credit to John. We measured how many breaths per minute we do at this workshop that John came to. And you do 4? Is that right? You measured 4?
Yeah. Well, it was less. It was
So let's just go with 4. So John
Yeah.
or John was breathing 4 breaths a minute.
Yeah.
Now the average person is 10 to 12 breaths a minute. So John's half, if not a third, the respiratory rate of the majority of humans. So that says something about John's character, his energy, his composure. That's super chill. That's pretty zenned out. And he's a bit of a fucking yeti. He's quite tall, so I think he naturally breathes slower. But yeah, so that's impressive, and that's speed. Like you can tell a lot about somebody by how they breathe. We've got conscious breathing. Yeah, let's regulate the nervous system, let's perform better, let's do whatever, create energy, just change states. But how someone's breathing when they're not thinking about it, what is their breath doing? That says so much about a person, where they are physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, otherly. It's powerful, man. So conscious breathing's a thing, but just the power of the awareness and
well, habits develop over time, right? And so a lot of why I do breathe fast in a lot of other situations, of course. But if I'm relaxed, I breathe slowly, and that comes from having worked a lot with my breath and with meditation over many years, and it becomes a habit over time. And I guess this is one of the aspects of breath work, right? Where we can use breath work to have an immediate effect, but we can also use breath work when we practice over a period of time to create habits, right? Which changes our state over time. Yeah.
100%, yeah. And that's the kind of spectrum in which I like to work. It's on one hand, it's these unconscious breathing habits, because that affects everything, physically, mentally, emotionally, like your health. It's so related to how you're breathing. And then retraining people's bad habits, because so many people are dysfunctional breathers. They breathe too much, they breathe too often, they've got a low CO2 tolerance, and a range of other things. So on one end, it's retraining these unconscious habits, and sometimes those are locked up in traumas, and it gets fascinating the places that can go. And then on the other hand, let's do conscious breathing, let's influence your nervous system, let's turn on our parasympathetic, relax, chill out, or let's turn on the sympathetic and fucking go.
Something really obvious right now.
Yeah.
Let's feel it.
Yeah. Woo. Yeah. So the breath fascinates me. It really does. I'd say I'm a bit of an evangelist for it.
Cool.
And I feel like I'm on a mission, like just with the breath, like I think I'll be doing this till I've got nothing else to do,
Well, hopefully you'll be breathing until you die, right?
Hopefully.
That's a breathing
Yeah,
joke.
yeah. Yeah.
So what got you into, what started your journey exploring the breath? You've clearly spent a good amount of time digging right deep into it. What got you started, and so you got you so passionate about following that?
So I was first taught how to breathe diaphragmatically by
Hmm.
my dad when I was about 8, to relax me. The lying flat, put some phone books on my belly, and the game was to push the phone books out with the belly
Hmm.
breathing.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then 18 about 18, 19, my first business mentor guided me through some meditation, and then from there I really dived down the meditation, self-development, psychedelic rabbit hole. I'd actually already been down the psychedelic rabbit hole for quite a bit by then. Non-ordinary states of consciousness, that kind of thing. So that kind of opened the door a little bit more. And then mid-20s, I tried the Wim Hof breathing, just some power hyperventilation, and I got real high. Like I got so high from it, like higher than any drugs I'd ever done, and it became my new drug, right? So like I became a bliss junkie, just seeking this high, seeking this pleasure. So that's what got me into it. That was the gate that opened me diving right into the breath rabbit hole now. That was over a decade ago. That was and that's yeah. And since then, I've just been all about the breath work. Always learning, always teaching what I learn. But yeah, like I'm not. What I'm really about is awareness. I just happen to teach breath work
Okay.
because I think it's the most powerful tool that we all have for awareness.
Hmm.
And I say about awareness, like just awareness of yourself, of other people, the world around you, how you relate to these things. Like, fuck, what does it mean to be a smart monkey on a giant rock flying through infinite space? Just awareness that we awareness, right? And when I was younger, I always wanted to use the experiences that I had to kind of ease people's suffering and to make them aware that, hey, life is how you look at it. But you can't tell somebody, hey, wake up. Say, hey, buddy, wake up. They just tell you to fuck off, or they're not listening, or they're not ready to hear it. It's like that awareness has to develop from within. That's right. Like the egg has to crack from the inside out. The flower has to unfold with the sun. You can't pull it apart the petals. And so I learned, early in my 20s, like my first, I guess you could say, Satori, sudden awakening was when I was 16, and then from there it's just gradually got exponential in terms of, my own, I think, just awareness of myself. And yeah, in my early 20s, I learned, well, you can't tell people to wake up. They're not listening.
Mm.
If they were, they probably wouldn't understand what you mean. And then I found breath work, and I'm like, fuck, I don't have to tell people shit. I can give them some tools and they can figure it out for themselves. So like in the world that we're living in an attention economy, right? It's like, where are the 7 billion eyeballs? That's the power, not the money. That's why stay in fear. You're different than me, stay over there. Separate and divide rather than unify, right? And yeah, we're living in this attention economy, and just like if all 7 billion people on the planet, or just like a quarter of them, not even that, just decided that one day we're going to play a different game on spaceship planet Earth, things could look quite drastically different quite quickly, right?
Hmm.
If we, just turn me upside down and you got we, you know. So that's what got me. That's why I'm into breath work, is to give people the tools so they can develop their own self-awareness in ways that they know how.
Hmm.
And that's one of them. And just to be less stressed and anxious on a practical level. Like a lot of the suffering that we inflict is inflicted by ourselves. and just other practical things that the breath can bring. But it's that awareness, that's that driving factor for me. Yeah, and like it's real simple, right? Like I don't even need any equipment to teach you. It's like quite low cost and low barrier to entry. It's pretty easy to pack the bags and take it wherever.
Yeah, that's true. It's your own medicine, your own body, your own mind.
Yeah.
You're not going to go far without that. So,
And the fascinating thing about the breath is like there's very few things that you can bring into every moment of your life, but your breathing and your breath is one of those things, right? Like wherever you go, there it is, and you can use it in some way, or just be aware of it, and then you can be guided by the breath throughout your life, or you can guide the breath, and it's this kind of this funky dance, and I think the world's ready for more of it, and that's one of the reasons why I went out and studied, studied under all these gurus, all these different masters, tried every breath workshop technique I can. It's a confusing world out there. There's
so what are some of the different techniques or different people you've studied with? What are some of the things you've explored?
Yeah, good question. So I'm a certified instructor in 4 different methods: Wim Hof, Heart Math, Oxygen Advantage, and Buteyko. But I know a lot more.
Right.
These are just like my teacher certifications.
Yep.
I've done almost every breathwork course I can find. Yeah. And so some people that have trained with.
What's the most unusual one? Can you think of one? Can you put a finger on one that's like really, oh, that one was a bit different?
I don't know. Like I guess I can take unusual in a few ways. Like unusual, and like that. What's not usual for everyday consciousness? I'd say the more kind of DMT style of breathing, where you really get into the realm of something else. That's quite unusual. I think some of the pranayama stuff's quite unusual, and I don't have I don't come from the pranayama breath lineage. I come from different aspects of just playing. And there's plenty of woo out there.
Oh, of course.
Not that I'm knocking the woo, but fuck, it's like you don't have to tell or sell woo. It's like if people want the woo, they're going to find it. Any words that you use are going to be insufficient to explain their woo experience or yours. So yeah, and there's so many different techniques out there. Some I believe are way more powerful than others. Some are practical, some are not so practical. But anything that's bringing awareness to the breath is good. Cool. Let's get it out there. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and yeah, some of the people I've trained with: Wim Hof, Patrick McKeown, Dan Brule. Those are some of the bigger breath guys, and then just you learn so much by teaching. I've taught thousands of people in hundreds of different environments, from groups to, hey, this is crazy, we're on the side of the street, but you want to breathe maybe, and then we're huffing and puffing in the garden, so you learn so much by doing, and just by being open and exploring and sharing. So my best teachers have just been a lot of the time chance happenings or unfoldings, unravelings,
Right.
and I think the universe is always trying to teach you something if you're listening. Yeah.
So you've gone and studied with all these different teachers, different methods, and obviously you've brought that all together into your own knowledge and the way that you work with it. What do you do? How do you work with people with the breath at the moment? What's your sort of main focus?
The first thing would be awareness, making them aware of the breath, getting them to invite the breath into their life and develop a relationship with it. And then it's about, what do they want to use the breath for? Is your nervous system in overdrive? Like, are you stressed and anxious all the time? Sympathetic nervous system's just been, going your whole life. Then we need to learn all about relaxation and the nervous system. Maybe you've got dysfunctional breathing habits because you've been stressed out your entire life, or maybe you've got asthma, or maybe you've got some lung issues. And then we're going to look at, well, what is the healthy breathing system, and what does it mean? Or performance. Let's say you need to perform better. What role does breathing play in that? Those are some of the big areas. Just general wellness and mental health, mental, emotional, and physical health. Just helping people be better humans. And, so if I'm working with somebody, it really depends on what they need, or what they're interested in, or what they think they need. And then giving, the way I work is I give people a breath toolbox, a practical toolbox to help them navigate life. Right? This one is that tool. This one is that tool. This one is that tool. But at the end of the day, be your own scientist. Go out there, explore, see how it makes you feel, use it in different ways. Give yourself permission to breathe, and and some understanding of how the breath works. I think getting people to breathe and knowing how the breath works are two different things.
Yeah, that's true.
And there's a lot of people out there, a lot of new breath workers that know how to get people breathing. Lie down, breathe, close your eyes, feel it, simple. But there's a lot more. There's real power in understanding how the breathing works, right? And I think a lot of people are catching up to speed real quick with that, which is cool. Because like, once you understand the different ways to use the breath and how they influence the body in different ways, especially once you know how to do that, you've then got that information to know how to do that. But the hardest thing for people is in actually doing it, is in making it a practice. As in making it as a daily practice. This is something that we do every day because it's a preventative, like a preventative health thing, or preventative's not the right word, but you do it for your ongoing wellness. And then when shit hits the fan, when throwing the toys out of the cot, you want to fucking give it to someone, then using the breath in those moments. I teach awareness and give people a toolbox, and then depending on what those people are, depends what will be in the toolbox. There's some standard tools, like that's the hammer, that's the crowbar, that's the little screwdriver, this is the brush. But then some people need a more specialized toolbox.
Yeah.
Like one of my regular clients has got hyperinterstitial sensitivity lung disease, undiagnosed. It's something like that, where the alveoli in her lungs don't inflate, and it's a terminal respiratory disease.
Mm-hmm.
And so we work together on a bunch of things, like making sure the nervous system's in balance. That's one of them. Respiratory strength exercises to improve the strength of the respiratory system. CO2 tolerance training to get better oxygen efficiency and all of that. And then on the other hand, like, I work with people just to run better, or I'm stressed out, or it really varies. And everyone's got an in with the breath. Like, there's some interest, or there's some way that people can latch on to it. It looks different for other people, And the thing about the breath is that everyone does it, but it transcends religion or spiritual beliefs, or these thoughts, these ideas, language, race, social, economic status. It's this one thing that transcends all of that, yet unifies us. So Fuck, man, if like everyone just took 5 minutes out of their day to shut their eyes and focus on their breathing, the world would be a better place. And then you're still going to have 1,435 minutes to do all the other shit you need to do. So I think the world, we just need to take a breath, right? There's been so much like outward expansion and raw with the planet, just grow and outwardness, that we need to just come inwards a little bit more, and just into ourselves and inward, to help balance that. And yeah, the breath's the most powerful tool that I know to do that. That's natural. That's right under the nose, right?
Yeah.
It's organic. Don't panic.
I think you're right that the state of knowledge about the breathing is growing quite rapidly.
Massively.
And I think a big part of that is really coming from people like Wim Hof, who've really really got people's attention about the breath.
100%.
And because of that, they're like, paying attention and then digging a bit deeper. And I think there's like so much value in that, because it's like that for a lot of people, that's an entry point. They go like, oh wow, I breathe in this way, and it makes me feel a certain way. I get certain benefits, and then that makes them go, well, how, why, right? And so people are starting to dig into the how and why. I remember, well, it's quite a few years ago now. I was talking to, it was a top level basketball player. And again, I've been doing things, well, particularly with Qigong, but of course Qigong involves working with the breath for quite some time. And I was talking to them about what kind of training or help was available to them, with their breath and so on, because I was curious like what's available. And they were working with, I don't know what it was called back then, but it's like High Performance Sport New Zealand or whatever the official body it is. And they say, yeah, well, if you have any of these different issues, like if you have an injury, they've got physiotherapists you go to. If you've got there's a doctor you go to. And if you want help with your breathing, yeah, they've got people you can go to. But all they would teach them was how to breathe diaphragmatically. Now, not knocking breathing diaphragmatically, like that's a great starting point.
Foundational.
That's a great, like really basic starting point in terms of helping people to relax, helping people to breathe more efficiently, but so limited in terms of then application to what they wanted to use it for. And then they're going to go out on the basketball court and they're going to be, it's like, yeah, that's like basic square one, fantastic, but you need more. And nothing more was available to them at that time. And these were the specialists at the time. All they would teach them was diaphragmatic breathing. And now you look at what's happening now. I think in many ways, often many of the specialists unfortunately haven't progressed that far. They're still like, oh yeah, we're working with this really limited toolbox. But the people who've really delved into it, like yourself, like some of the people you've mentioned who you've trained with and so on, are bringing a much more comprehensive understanding of the breath and a much broader toolbox to help people to understand, well, breathing in this way has this effect. Breathing in this way has this effect. If this is what you're after, you might want to develop these skills. And so I think it's really, really encouraging to see the way that interest is growing, and as part of that, the stand of knowledge is growing as well.
Yeah, I think James Nestor's book called Breath, the subtitle sums that up quite well, which is Breath, the new science of a lost art, or something like that. So the research is catching up now, and it's growing exponentially.
Because it's not like working with the breath is new, right? No. It's like you go almost into any culture. Some are more famous for it than others. Indians with yoga, Chinese with Qigong.
Start of the Bible.
Breath of life. Yep. But even when you get into Aboriginals, Hawaiians, they had different practices working with the breath. So we knew it was powerful. Yeah, the Maori as well. We knew it was powerful, but then somehow we kind of maybe lost track of that somewhere along the way, and now we're still reconnecting, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's because we've been so outwardly focused, and the world around us has been constructed in a way that makes us, just keep running on the hamster wheel rather than looking within, and I think, the fact that Christianity kind of came in and sodomized the planet for lack of a better word. Some people have kind of split from their, let's put it, the church traumatized the planet, and a lot of people, like, let's be real, it did. And that has, created a division between science and spirituality, or people's, practices, and I think it's, it's given the word God a bad name. So I think that's another thing that has kind of made people not look within so much as they haven't had the tools or the frameworks, and the frameworks that they have had is riddled with dogma. Christianity is beautiful, as with all the religions are in their own
But
way.
dogma can be a problem, right?
Oh yeah, find God,
It separates people from their own experience.
That's it.
Yeah.
Find God, lose the dogma. Yeah.
I think that's true of all sorts of things, not just religion, right?
Yeah.
Where dogma stands in the way of true understanding, true experience.
It's true with the breath.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've worked with a lot of people with their breath. Do you maybe have some interesting examples of people who you've worked with and the difference that working consciously with their breath has made to them? Putting you on the spot a little bit, but if you can think of like something maybe stand out.
Plenty. I get people, comments from people all day, not all day, but every week I'll get comments from people, or have interactions, or uncover things. Plenty. Like, some of the big ones are like, "Hey Scott, I'm not going to kill myself anymore."
That's a pretty big one.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
Got pulled aside in the supermarket one day, and this guy's like, "Hey man, breathing's cool, huffing and puffing, cool, but that breathe before you speak thing you taught me, and conscious listening while breathing," he said, "that's a game changer. Like, my relationship with my wife and my daughter has pretty much changed overnight." So he's now close to those people. A couple of months later, his wife came to the workshop and said, "My husband's not reactive anymore. He takes his time, he's calm, he's patient. He's like a completely different man. So I'm here just to see what you said, what you told him." So lots of things like that. Yeah. I remember one workshop I did, a corporate workshop down in Christchurch, and afterwards this guy stands up, arms in the air, and this is the best fucking thing I've ever done in my life. What's one of the things that I love about taking people on the more intense breathwork journeys is that if they haven't had an experience like that before, just seeing the look in their eyes, them coming out the other side, and just opening them to something, I think that's huge. Like the client ones are huge, like, from people just being like, "Okay, well, I'm not as reactive anymore," and I reckon that's saved me a few $100,000 worth of sound business decisions. So it's a health thing. Like, a fascinating one recently was, and I won't go into too much.
Yeah, we don't need any personal details, of course,
details.
but a general indication of what the situation and how it affected them, that would be good.
She came to me because she had asthma. But every time she focuses on her breath, thinks about her breathing, she breaks down crying. And I said, "Well, look, we'll be gentle." So I went to her place, and we get talking and kind of uncovering some things, and she was diagnosed with asthma at about 3 years old, and has since been a bad breather, fast breathing, chest breathing, asthmatic, struggled with breathing her whole life. I'm like, okay. And so imagine being 2 or 3, and all these doctors coming in and saying, "You have a breathing problem here, take this inhaler." For a child, that'd be hugely traumatizing, right? And then so that's one of the reasons why you're scared. But then we dug a little bit deeper, and she told me some of her story, and I'm like, well, she was in an unsafe home. There was violence. It was an unsafe home. So as a baby, she wasn't safe. She didn't feel safe. So What do you do when you don't feel safe? Your breathing changes because you go into fight or flight mode. So you're in stress mode. It goes up into the chest. You start mouth breathing. So her at a baby or a young age, she was unsafe. So her breathing changed, and that actually caused the asthma, with the dysfunctional breathing. They thought she had asthma problems, but it's because she was, because of that, because she was unsafe. And then she got traumatized by the medical system, and given the recent COVID-19 stuff, and people can relate to being traumatized by the medical system, but as a child, having these doctors and hospitals, and so traumatized by the breathing anymore. And then throughout her life, even into her professional life, she'd been, in an unsafe environment her entire life. So she'd been in fight or flight mode her entire life, and these breathing habits had just compounded over 50 years. And just little things like when she remembers that when she was in the house, her parents would keep her in a corner of the house, and she'd have to be quiet. And imagine being a child and you're being quiet, and your breathing's the things that's making you most noise, right? So she came to me with asthma, but we dug a little bit deeper and going, wow, there's the childhood trauma has, created your breathing issue, and that breathing issue's created more trauma, and it's just compounded over your entire life. And that's why, when you focus on your breathing, it fires all these circuits, right? And brings up all these things. And so for us, we just started just by, we're not focusing on the asthma or the dysfunctional breathing. We're just focusing on inviting the breath into your life, right? Like it's a friend, it's not a foe, it's not this enemy that you think it has been your entire life. And for her, she'd had 10 years with the therapy, so she could see the value in this uncovering. She's like, she got it, which was great. She'd already done the work, and she's writing a book. Um, Currently, 50,000 words in a book, so she's doing the writing thing. So with her, it's like, okay, well, here's a notebook, a little black notebook. I gifted her some of the notebooks that I just gave to you.
Yeah, thank you.
And I said, okay, well, this can be your breathing journal. Just write everything, acknowledge, all your experiences with the breath. Because I said, well, what can you think about breathing in childhood? She's like, fuck, there's so much, So that's just uncovered all these things for her. But so that was fascinating. Like, she was fascinated, I was fascinated. But it's magic, man. Like the way that the work around breathwork unfolds, it's magic. It's like if you set the intention, let go of the result, if you're focused on providing value, regardless of what you're getting, the breath finds its way and it unfolds in magic ways. Like, for lack of a better word, it's magic. Magic, it totally is. And it's just been fascinating. Like, I've now almost been teaching breathwork for a decade, and just some of the ways that the work has shown up and the pathways that it's taken me down, where, I'm like, oh yeah, I want to do this with the breath, but then I let go of the result and kind of let the universe fill in the blanks, right? And it often turns out much better than I could have expected. And coming from a place of just wanting to provide value without reciprocity.
Reciprocity.
There we go. Thanks, John. Without that word, without being like, oh, hey, John, I teach some breathing, but I want something from you. It's just like, hey, man, you're a human. Like, I don't have to like you, but I love you. So here's some things that are awesome. Or just like being, and just coming from that place, and just doing the work, and doing the work. And an adjacent point to this is I get a lot of people ask me saying, Scott, I want to become a breath worker, or you've inspired me to become a breath worker. What should I do? And I say a couple of things. I'm like, firstly, just do the work, like on yourself, first and foremost, really integrate that, understand that, and then teach whatever you know to whoever's going to listen. Anybody. Like that guy, your mum. Good luck trying to teach your mum, but if you can, teach your mum. Teach your friends. Just get repetitions in. Just teach people. Don't worry about money. Just focus on the value, and the universe will pay you back in another way. And the best part about doing the work and teaching things over and over again and interacting with people is that you learn how to do the work. Like now I've trained thousands of people, And I'm confident sitting down with anybody, as long as we can speak the same language. And even not, I would give it a go, but it hasn't happened yet. But just from working with so many people has taught me how to work with people, how to see things, how to understand the breath. It's, and take your time, so just explore different aspects, So that's what I say to people when they're like, Scott, how do I get into breath work? Do the work, teach whoever you can, learn everything you can. Doesn't mean you need to use it, but find things out. And yeah, learn the science of it. Like I said before, a lot of people know how to get people breathing, but they don't understand how breathing works. Start with, what are the breathing muscles? What's the breathing chemistry? What's the role of CO2 and O2? What's all these different gases? Like learn what happens with apneas and like learn how the breathing system functions, because, we can get people lying on the ground breathing. John, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. It doesn't take a rocket science to do that. Or let's breathe diaphragmatically, or let's slow our exhales down to engage our parasympathetic. It's really easy to teach people some of those tools, but also learning what is a healthy, optimal breathing system, because we can do all the conscious breathing, all the huffing and puffing, all the nervous system. We can do all that, all the conscious stuff, all you like. But if there's an underlying breathing dysfunction, if the breathing system is suboptimal, all this kind of stuff's kind of going to just bullet on band-aids and bullet wounds, right? Just
Well, yeah,
stops the
because
bleeding.
you're going to do the conscious breathing for, well, however long you do it each day. It might be for 20 minutes, it might even be for an hour. But how are you breathing all the rest of the time? You might not be doing yourself any favors the rest of the time. And so understanding and making those healthy habits is then going to have a huge effect.
Yeah, 100%. And you need you do need to bring conscious awareness to the breath and conscious control to influence the unconscious breathing patterns. But it's not just how we control the breath, but it's how is the breath breathing without us. And those things, those things are hugely important. Because so often when people think breath work, or they come to a class, straight away they want to do things. They want to make the breath do things. They want to huff and puff, or they want to hold their breath, or they want to control it. How's about you get to know it first? Like, how are you actually breathing? What is it that you're wanting to change? What's it like if you just completely let go and just be aware and observe? Like us, like me and John just did a workshop this weekend.
We did. Yeah. How about that? I went to Scott's workshop, and then the next weekend there was a different workshop on breathing, and I turned up like, oh, there's Scott. Both turned up somewhere else.
Yeah, and and in this breathing workshop, we had the freedom to breathe however we want, and most people are hyperventilating, huffing and puffing, making lots of noise. And then there's me and you in the corner, and you breathe for 3 hours. You're blindfolded, you lie down, you breathe for 3 hours, however you like. You've got a partner that's watching you, so you're safe. And from what I gather, our experiences were really similar. Where everyone else is huffing and puffing, we just completely let go of the breath and let the breath do what it wants.
Yeah, and I was interested that we it seemed we had sort of similar experience there. I thought that was quite interesting. Yeah.
The chilled out corner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was good fun though. That was it's always interesting to explore different aspects of the breath and to see how different people respond to in different situations, and so it all adds to the understanding, right?
Always learning. You're always learning. There's always something to learn. In every moment. But then that moment depends on how we define it. Is that moment in this breath, or is this moment today, or is it this week, or is it this month? Something I think pulling us further into awareness or further away.
So, what do you see as the future of breath? It's a real renaissance, maybe, in a way, at the moment, where
it's the fucking Wild West at the moment.
Well, Wild West.
Wild West renaissance. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, you're probably right, because there's a lot of stuff out there, and some of it's not that well.
The beautiful Wild West.
Some of it's not that well put together, and some of it's fantastic.
Anything that gets people breathing.
But there's there's certainly a resurgence of interest,
Yeah.
at the very least,
Mm.
and a lot of people putting the work in,
Mm.
right? Really
Mm.
learning, really understanding.
Mm.
Like, where do you have a vision of where we're headed with? I mean, we're all going to keep breathing, but in terms of specifically working with the breath and maybe how that might integrate into our health system, and just into our culture, into people's daily lives. You have sort of some idea about that?
Yeah, so I think on the whole, as one of my teachers would say, breathwork is the new yoga.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of exploding in popularity, which is a good thing. Like I think people are sick of looking externally for answers, or to the pharmaceutical companies for health, and realizing that, look, the breath is the most powerful drug that's under the nose. Like, I don't know, like in a perfect world, maybe not a perfect world, but in this reality, like if Pfizer could come along and get the breath,
Patent it so that they
patent
had
it,
20 years of
yeah,
exclusivity.
yep, and get all the benefits of the breath, because there's, the breath is, just type in breath benefits. There's so many benefits to the breath, right? But if they could get all the benefits, and if they could put that in a pill, it would be the most powerful pill in the world. The most powerful drug, in terms of regulating people's nervous system, cardiovascular health, immune system, focus, performance, sleep, communication, sex. Fuck, you can use it for everything, right? It'd be the most breakthrough, powerful drug in the world. And then governments would mandate it overnight. It's like, you have to do your breathing today, John. You can't go out of the house until you're breathing. Have you done your breathing? No, you can't come to our cafe. So, yeah, like if governments could go and mandate the breath, that would be great. Then we could, but like, I've got my visions for it, like, my own little universe. I think on the whole, people are becoming more aware of it. People are ready for it. The world's waking up. Cool. And people will find the breath in their own way that resonates with them. I think there's going to be a lot more science driven. It's, and yeah, it's been taught in more schools and more curriculums, and more workplaces are bringing it in. So, the way I've always thought about it is, we live in this boxy world, right? This hard, capitalistic, really masculine world, rah. And the breath is the soft, flowy thing that's just going to come in and just oozing around it, So it's finding its own ways, and it's like, I think the breath has its own vision for what it wants to do. It's so I think it's for people who feel like they're a missionary to the breath. To ask them, okay, well, how can I help empower the breath? What is what how does the breath play into my life, or what kind of vision do I have for it? So for me, two parts. One is, yeah, I'm studying psychology, third year psych. Lockdown hit. My world stopped, because I was teaching solely in real life.
Right.
Had world tour, not a world tour, but two things to do around the world, breathwork. And then my world stopped. I got real fucking depressed. And then I'm like, and I threw myself at some study just so I could do something. And I'm like, okay, well, psychology makes sense to me, the science of the mind. And I got more clear as I went along, but I'd always gone, well, how can I take breath work, and how can I take psychology, and how can I bring them together more, and just kind of nudge it forward in the westernized health system, especially in mental health? How can I bring breath work forward into that? And to me, psychology made sense, right? Because you've got psychiatry, who kind of run the mental health system at the moment, and they're a fucking joke. They'll be gone soon enough, hopefully. They're not a joke. They're great at putting out fires, but psychologists are the ones that actually work with people and their problems, and rather than just sedating you. So I think psychology has the most influence in bringing these kind of frameworks into the mental health system. Anyway, I started studying psych to go with breath work. And yeah, about to start the honours next year, and then from there the goal was to do the PhD and go through the academic research process to show what I want to show is that breathwork can be a standalone psychological therapy, like not just this tool, not just this intervention, but here's a standalone therapy, just come in and sort your shit out, right? And us breath workers know that, we know that, but psychology is the science of the mind, it's research based, so you've got to show that. So, for at least the next 5-10 years, I'm following this academic pathway of wanting to bring psychology, breathwork into the psychology space more and provide a tool, provide a framework, provide some research, and then help get that out into the mental health system, because people are hurting, people are suffering. Like I've been through some fucking dark places myself, so I can really relate to some of the struggles and challenges that people go through.
It's definitely something we hear about in the media here in New Zealand quite a lot, that our mental health system just can't cope. They just don't have the resources to even handle it.
On the extreme end, the police do it.
Yeah, and that's far from ideal.
Yeah. The real pandemic is a mental health one. It's an anxiety pandemic. It's a, nervous system out of balance pandemic. It's a people don't feel safe pandemic. So my vision for breathwork, and I'll be doing this till the day that I'm not breathing, is, well, maybe like transhumanism. Maybe I will. Who knows?
Well, like ask Elon Musk or Joe Rogan about that. They're all about the.
I think that's more. Who's the dude that invented the scanner?
I don't know.
Anyway, that's a different pathway. For me, it's just like I feel like a breath evangelist. Like I'm on a mission. Like, not to tell people shit. Like I got nothing to sell you on. I'm not trying to convince you of anything. But hey, here's some things that have helped me, and here's some points of view that I quite enjoy. You want to hear them or feel them? So for me, it's just getting the breath out there, however I can, and that. So I'm taking an academic pathway. I've got my own professional pathway that I'm taking. I've
got to pay the bills in the meantime.
Got to pay the bills.
The academic stuff doesn't fund things so well, at least initially.
I believe everyone has the right to buy cheese if they want to buy cheese without looking at the price, right?
For those of you who don't know, because a lot of people who are watching this or listening to this aren't going to be from New Zealand. There's going to be a lot of people overseas.
Oh, kia ora, bro.
Yeah. So it's one of the things. It's like, particularly over the last
cheese is
years,
expensive.
It's the thing. Well, because we produce so much dairy in this country,
I think,
insane amounts of dairy. Yeah. But for some reason, our cheese has become ridiculously expensive, and so it's like the canary in the gold mine sort of thing, that the media is often talking about the cost of a block of cheese as sort of the marker of like how crazy prices are.
It's the measure of wealth.
That's what Scott's talking about, to be able to buy cheese and not worry about it.
Yeah, soon they're not going to be bullions of gold, they're going to be billions of cheese.
Stack up the cheese in your cellar.
So I'm taking this academic pathway, but then I've also got my professional pathway, which I'm really happy in. I've been teaching now for a while. I've got all these different certifications. I've worked with a bunch of people. I know what I'm doing. I'm not going to say I feel like a newbie. Like I feel like I'm getting to the intermediate stage of what I know. But in saying that, because you're always learning, and I feel that there's still so much to uncover. So I've got my little studio at my place, and I'm building a little studio at my partner's place. I've got physical things that I do, and I work a lot online for the people online.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing right now. And that's a wonderful thing in many ways. Like, it's like, do we like to do things in person? Of course we like to do things in person.
Real life's good.
But online is this amazing tool. It means that you can access things all around the world. So like, if you want to work with Scott and you live, who knows where?
Canada.
other side of the planet somewhere,
Romania.
you possibly can. You can
Yeah.
connect, and
Yeah. Well, and that's been the silver lining of this pandemic and the lockdown, is that I'd never thought prior that I could have worked with people online in the way that I do. But now, after doing it for years, it's not as effective as real life, but it's pretty much,
and it works.
And it works. It totally works, Like you'd know this teaching Qigong online. It's not the same as in real life. You can't smell them, but you can still feel them, you can see them, you can guide them, you can interact, you can still clearly and coherently communicate.
Yeah, absolutely. In the online environment now, it is possible to be so much more interactive than even just a few years ago. It would have been so much harder to do what you can do now. You can have a good interaction online these days. So it's good. It is what it is, and in many ways, it's a beautiful thing that we have that as a tool.
100%.
So you've been doing quite a bit online as well as not so much in-person stuff when we had the lockdowns, but I guess you've got your in-person stuff happening again now.
Yeah. Like for a while, I was just doing online because of lockdowns, and now it's getting back to a good balance of online and in person. It just depends on what's going on and who's where.
So you teach workshops.
Yeah.
Sounds like you also do quite a bit of work one-on-one with people.
Yeah, I do a lot of one-on-one work, in person or online. I do workshops in person or online, for groups of people or corporates. Got a lot of experience in the corporate space, and the corporates are pretty important change makers and changing people's habits and behaviors, and there's a lot of curiosity in that sector. I do breathing courses, in person and online, block courses, some are mine, some I collaborate with different people. So I work with people on ongoing or one-off basis, and also contrast therapy is a part of what I do. Contrast therapy being saunas and ice baths and getting people breathing and opening and closing their systems.
Ice baths make you breathe.
100%. Oh, they do.
Well, they certainly encourage you.
They keep you cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. And so, I mean, you're doing the contrast therapy. How valuable of a contribution do you find that in working with people's breath? Or is it kind of a separate thing, or do you find that like they really sync up well together?
It's a separate thing, but they're very linked.
Right. There's a synergy between them.
Yeah, and there's different things, like on the one thing with the cold is that it's teaching you to control your stress response, turn your stress response off. The breathing's teaching you to do that. The cold and the hot is probably the best thing that you can do for overall cardiovascular health.
Yeah, works those blood vessels.
The 100,000 kilometers of veins, capillaries, arteries. Yeah, it works all those out. And the only in a way that other cardiovascular exercise can't. Through temperature, you just expand and contract the whole system. And the healthier your cardiovascular system is, the easier it's going to be for the oxygen to get around the body to all the bits of the body that need it. So it's interlinked in that sense. And then also in the other ways that it brings this sense of presence, mindfulness, paying attention, awareness of yourself and how you feel, that kind of thing.
Feel cold.
Yeah. Fuck this, man. Yeah. Cold. Yeah. So interlinked.
Cool. All right. Well, how can people find you? We've talked about, local people in New Zealand, they might be interested in. That's a bit of that. I don't know if you can hear that on the microphones, but
sounds like a possum or something.
Sounds like probably a possum having a fight on the roof.
Yeah.
The microphones might not pick it up, but that's why we're going, what's going on?
Sounds pretty horrific.
Yeah, there are a few possums around here.
How can people find me? 02Coach. So,
02Coach.
Yeah, O for oxygen, 2 the number 2, and then coach.
.nz.
NZ.
.nz.
Yeah.
Or
or
.co.nz or .nz?
just .nz,
.nz.
but both work.
Both work?
Yeah, or
.co.nz
just,
or .nz?
Google Scott 02Coach or
Okay,
Instagram something.
cool.
There's lots of different ways to find me.
Yeah.
Behind the couch.
Yeah, so we'll put a link or some links in the written description.
Yeah.
I mean, some of you might just be listening to this, so it's good
Yeah.
that we just say it so you can remember. But we'll put the links in the description as well, so you can
Yeah.
find them that way.
There's one thing that I can offer, which is I do 2 free weekly Wim Hof classes.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Yeah, so 7 a.m. Tuesday morning, 7 p.m. Thursday evening, New Zealand time, for about 40 minutes on Zoom. We just do 5 rounds of Wim Hof. That's free to join.
Cool.
And we do it each week, same time, and we can put a link so you can sign up to that as well.
We'll put a link in there, and so people who want to give that a try, it's a good way to, if you haven't done breathwork before, get into it, or if you have done breathwork before and you'd like something to motivate you and keep you going, that's a good way that you can get into it.
There's no downsides.
No, of course not. Cool. Well, thanks very much, Scott. It's been great having you on the podcast and an interesting conversation. And maybe we'll talk to you at some point in the future. I understand you are getting into some research as part of your academic studies moving forwards, and it might be really interesting to talk to you about some of that at some point in the future.
Yep, absolutely. And it's just going to give me something to do, something to fill in the time and help, push that cause.
Great.
So thanks, John. Thanks, team. Stay awesome. Breathe well. Much love.